Today's Torah portion is second from the last of Genesis. It's Genesis 41:1 through 44:17.
Wait, really?
That's what I have in my booklet.
No. Where is that?
It's on the wrong
Vayigash.
date.
Huh?
We did that last week.
44.
Yeah.
No, you gotta be kidding.
Yeah, I think it's 44.
44:18 through 47 something.
Yeah,
Yep.
'cause it's,
Vayigash.
47.
Oh, wait a minute.
he's looking at the wrong notes.
I had the wrong page. I'm sorry.
I'm like, I know we're on Far Archives
Yeah.
portion.
I thought it looked familiar, but yeah, 44:18 through 47:27. We'll,
Yeah,
we'll
it's
finish
okay,
up.
David. We'll figure it out for
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate it. Oh man. Well, that's my first mistake of the week. So.
Wow, you're doing good.
Well, the week just started today.
Yeah, but it's
No, it
been
starts tomorrow.
3 hours.
So this is I'm not. I don't know how many
It's
mistakes
the last-
I made.
The last
This-
mistake of the week.
Yeah,
There
this
you
is the
go.
last mistake of the week. There you go.
That works.
But the day's
you.
not over yet, so we don't know if that's true.
All right. This Torah portion, as I was looking it over today, this morning, is about restoring the family. And you all know that I've been talking about that quite a bit. You know, the restoration of, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And in fact, the Haftorah portion is Ezekiel 37:15 through 28. And that is dealing specifically with bringing the two sticks together. So I find that quite interesting. So let me open up with a word of prayer. Father, praise and glory, give you thanks for this day, and thank you for the fellowship and the opportunity to gather together to study your word. Thank you for your word, and thank you for blessing us with understanding and wisdom. And so I pray that you would just be with us through this study time, and especially throughout the Shabbat. And we give you praise in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So last week's account of Joseph and his brothers, they had headed off, and then they came back. They were brought back by Joseph's servant, and that's when they found, they appeared before Joseph. So I want to go to chapter 40. Let's go to 44:18. 44:18. Just the right marker here. Okay. And as I'll go ahead and read this. So then Judah approached Joseph and said, "If you please, my lord, may your servant speak a word in my lord's ears, and let not your anger flare up at your servant, for you are like Pharaoh." So here we got Judah is now speaking for the family. Okay, so makes them sort of preeminent. Among the brothers. But the indication is he has no clue that the one whom he's speaking to is his brother, is Joseph at this point. So, verse 19, "My Lord has asked his servant, saying, have you a father or brother? And we said to my Lord, we have an old father and a young child of his old age. His brother is dead. He alone is left from his mother, and his father loves him." And so we go into verse 21. It says, "Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, and I will set my eye on him." And Judah said to him, "The youth cannot leave his father, for should he leave his father, he will die," meaning Jacob will die. "But you said to your servants, if your youngest brother does not come down with you, you will not see my face again." All right. So there's quite a bit of information there, as it continues on with the story of the brothers going down and getting food and going back, and they got their money back, but this time, or the time coming up, it's going to be quite interesting, for the brothers. But again, I just want to point out, Judah is the one who is speaking. Judah is the one who is interceding, or dealing on the account of the family. He could also be looked at as being the protector of the family. Now, I use that kind of loosely, but he can be seen as that. Now, the brothers, I think in the portion before, when they come in, let me just double check this. Yeah, verse 14 of chapter 44. When the brothers came in to Joseph's house, they fell to the ground before him. Now, we talked a little bit last week about dreams and what Joseph's dream meant, and how it was interpreted. And again, his brothers, on the first dream with when they were harvesting, with the stacks of grain, how they, gathered around Joseph. Joseph stood up, and the brothers gathered around. Now, I don't know if I brought this out last week, but if we look at that, that's a prophetic dream. Now, if you remember, the brothers are the ones that interpreted the dream. I think we talked about that. Dream interpretation is very, very important. And but what I want to point out is, in Joseph's dream, the brothers were gathered around him. But what actually took place here in verse 14 is they were before him and they bowed down to him. So here's what I take away from that. The dream that Joseph had was not fulfilled at this particular point, because they were in front of him, they weren't around him. So there's a point in time when the brothers are going to be surrounding him and bow down to him. Now, to me, that is key, and again, it's prophetic. It's something that hasn't happened yet. And so, because if we interpret Joseph's dream correctly, then, if it hasn't happened quite the way, he interpreted it, then it needs to still happen, in my opinion. Okay? And so we see nowhere in here where the brothers gather around him and bow down. Nowhere in this Genesis portion. Okay. Now, back to our, back to, there's a couple more things in chapter 44 that I want to point out. Now, Joseph says, he asks of his father in verse 20, I think it is, and we said to my Lord, we have an old father and a young child of old age. His brother is dead. Okay, now if we go down, and because Joseph will ask in chapter 45, verse 3, Joseph says to his brothers, I am Joseph. This is where he revealed himself in chapter 45. And he says, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? I always found that question to be puzzling, because he has indication from before in the conversation before, he had the conversation with his brothers that his father was still alive. So why is he asking, is my father still alive?
He doesn't trust them?
It could have been a test, yeah. It could have been a test. But as we go on, it says, however, his brothers could not answer him. And the way mine reads is, they were left disconcerted before him. What do we, it's like, what do we say? What do we tell him? Do we tell him the truth, or do we continue to make up something? And so Joseph knows the truth. And again, it could be a test to his brothers. Okay? So, one of the things, within this Torah portion,
That's you.
That was me? Oh, okay. Let me try that. Nope, that's still. Oh, my volume's way up. Can everybody hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. Now your volume's down. Okay, let's try that. So I'm trying not to get any feedback. One of the things that comes up in the third part of chapter 45, when Joseph does reveal himself and says to his brothers, or he's confronting them, then he, as verse 1, brings out, when in verse 45, in chapter 45, he reveals himself to his brothers. So when he asks the question, is my father alive? His brothers know who he is. Now, I kind of looked at that this morning and I go, what could that really mean? What's he doing? And we'll get into, the how Joseph, what he says to them here in the next few verses. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, is my father still alive? Is his word still going forth from him? That's how I'm looking at this right now. Is his word going forth from him? From the Father? And so I kind of went to Amos chapter 8. So if you want to go Amos chapter 8, verse 11 and 12. Because remember, there's a famine in the land again now, and this is what is bringing the family to, setting up the conditions to bring the family down. But let's look at Amos chapter 8, verse 11 and 12. The way mine reads is, behold, days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I will send a famine on the land. Not a famine for bread or a thirst for water. However, rather for hearing the words of Yahweh. And people will stagger from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They will go to and fro to seek the word of Yahweh, but they will not find. And I believe at that time also, there will be those that will be asking, is Yahweh still in control? Is he still alive? And that question came up back in the 60s and 70s. I remember that. Is God dead? I know some of you may remember that, but, and the question was, is God dead? Well, it's going to come to a point in the future, I believe, when the word, i.e. Yahweh's word, is not going to be readily available. And they're going to be seeking it back and forth, to and fro, to get a word. And what a good time, to understand what I'm going to say here. What an opportune time for the enemy to come in and distort that word and lead many astray. And our best example is Hasatan in the garden. So, anybody have any other thoughts on that? All right. Let's go back to chapter 45 of Genesis.
Well, so they lose hope, just like when people say, oh, he's coming on Thursday and he doesn't show up. People
Yeah.
lose hope.
Yep.
Because they put their hope in what people said.
Right.
Yeah, but who are they asking? If that was me, I have maybe one person I would ask. Otherwise, they don't know any more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good observation.
Right.
But this is, who they're going to be seeking out are those of the children of Israel.
Mm.
And this is going to be the children of Israel asking this.
Mm.
And I think, as we've gone through Amos and as we've gone through Hosea, and a couple of the other prophets, we find out that they do ask that. They're wondering that. They're seeking out. Is he with us? Moses even brings that up in Deuteronomy.
Mm-hmm.
Time is going to come when you're going to wonder if God is with you or not.
Mm.
And when they don't get an answer the way that they want to get an answer, it's going to be, it'll bring them to their knees. However, we've got enough warning within the prophets, within the Torah, that sometimes you're a little short, a little late of, coming, for deliverance, deliverance coming to you. But nonetheless, deliverance does come.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that also in this Torah portion.
Mm-hmm.
As we go on to the next few verses. I don't know if that helps, Marla, but we got to remember this is dealing with the children of Israel and their relationship.
Well, just like when they went out to Mount Sinai, they're thinking, oh, you're going to take us right into the promised land.
Right.
That didn't happen.
Yeah. As they were leaving Egypt, they were thinking one thing, and another thing had to happen first. So, verse 4, chapter 45. Yeah. In fact, Marla, you up to reading?
Sure.
Why don't you, I'd like to hear your translation, verse 4 through verse 8, please.
Okay. Then Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. And when they came near, he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Mitzrayim. And now do not be grieved, nor displeased with yourselves, because you sold me here. For Elohim, for Yahweh, sent me before you to preserve life. For 2 years now, the scarcity of food has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there is neither plowing nor harvesting. And Yahuwah sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to give you life, and give life to you by a great escape. So then you did not send me here, but Yahuwah, and he has set me for a father to Pharaoh, and master of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Mitzrayim.
Okay. That again is, to me, is a prophetic word. That is a prophetic word of what's going to happen. But let's focus on verse 6. And at this time, it's 2 years into the 7-year period. And now Joseph is revealing himself to his brothers. Okay? And he's saying, yet there's still 5 more years to go. What's interesting is in Revelation, the plagues, the bowls of wrath, they are sevens. They're in sevens. And in the 7th one, it's usually their deliverance, but it leads into the next group of 7 woes. So here's a pattern. It's the same thing. It's going to be, to fulfill the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream, with the cows and with the ears of corn. If you remember, Joseph said to Pharaoh, I don't interpret it, Yahweh interprets it. Until Yahweh is ready to interpret it, it will not be understood. And so, we're going to go to something else here in just a minute, but before we do, just kind of, get a better understanding here. And I see this as a pattern for Jacob's trouble when that time comes. Now, I've said before, that the restoration of the children of Israel, will take place during, I believe, during the time of plenty. But, if I'm looking at this as a prophetic statement, if I'm looking at what Joseph and the brothers are going through as a prophetic statement, the brethren, Judah, will not really understand what's happening until we're into the first part of Jacob's trouble. And this to me just also says, like Egypt was classified or has been classified as representing the world, we're still going to be scattered for the most part. Many of them will be scattered. The children of Israel will be scattered around the world. But there will be a good representation within the land when this, when this is taking place. Now that's hard to imagine. And I don't know exactly how that's going to take place, but I just know that at some point, there's going to be an understanding of who Joseph is, and he's going to be accepted to some degree, but not in totality, until it's truly revealed to the brothers. So who is Joseph? We've talked about this before. Who is Joseph?
The children of Israel, those that are the chosen.
Okay, they're chosen, yes.
They're walking in his ways.
Yeah, they're walking in his ways.
Who is Joseph, you mean prophetically?
Yes.
He's Yeshua.
Okay, it's Yeshua, because Joseph is a type and shadow of the Messiah.
Right.
So, who does the word of Yahuwah appoint as the Josephs?
Us.
Exactly. Those who are chosen, those who are walking in his word, those that have the word hidden within their being, those that are filled with the Spirit of truth, but yet they're still not recognized as being of, Yeshua, of the word. Because there's still going to be many of Judah that are going to, throw, condemnation upon these individuals. What's interesting, like I said earlier, Ezekiel 34, with the restoration of the family, bringing the two sticks together, When I've talked to a couple of rabbis and Jewish individuals, most of them believe that this has already happened. This has taken place. They believe it took place when the children of Israel went back into the land of Canaan. And they started way back in the 1890s. But it became official when they, declared that they were a nation in 47, 48. Well, the more I looked at that, and the more I, studied and prayed about it, no, that's not when it happened. That didn't happen. The coming together didn't happen because, like I said, when I've talked to, Jewish individuals, even this past summer, no, that's already happened. This isn't going to happen. That's already taken place. Ezekiel has already been fulfilled. No, I don't believe it has. But it will be. And as I'm looking at this Torah portion, Joseph needs to reveal himself or be revealed to his brothers. And just like I believe what happened at this particular time in our Torah portion, his brothers really go, what? Because you got to remember, Joseph still had his Egypt upon himself. Which represents those of us scattered around the world look like the world.
Yeah.
We still have this, the same attitude, the same thoughts. And it's like, okay, because what they're looking at, what they're seeing in us is just, you may want to be of Judah, but we're not going to accept you. But that's not going to stop the restoration. That's not going to stop the other tribes coming back to the land of Canaan and inhabiting that. That's not going to stop it. That's going to continue on. But there'll be issues. Remember, we're 2 years into the years of hunger. And so that means there's struggles going on. Not tremendously, but there are struggles going on. And so verse 7 in chapter 45, when Joseph reveals to his brothers, it's not you who sent me here, even though you sold me, or you made the opportunity for me to be sold to come to Egypt. It's not because of you. It's because Yahweh sent me here to do this. Just like he put out the children, the house of Israel from the land and scattered them all over the earth. We learned that from starting with Moses. The prophets talk about it. Like I said, Ezekiel, Isaiah talks about it. But they also talk about the restoration. And that brings me to, the question that the disciples asked Yeshua before he ascended. Quite an interesting question, if you remember that. Does anybody remember what they asked?
Can you repeat the question?
What was the last question Yeshua's disciples asked him before he ascended to the Father?
Was it when will he return?
What I think what he something to do with Israel.
Yeah.
Would he bring them back or something like that?
All right. The question specifically in the book of Acts
Okay, now I know what it is.
is that at this time you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel.
Okay.
And then if you go on in the book of Acts, it says heaven must receive him until the restoration of all things. So it's written down for us, but we have to learn how to put these things together. Is that at this time you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? And what he said to them is, it's not for you to know the times and the seasons and when that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish, it would have been nice if he would have followed that up with, at some time you will know though. You'll get a clue. But you see, we have his word with us.
Mm-hmm.
And as Amos says, the time is coming when they're, it's not going to be seeking out bread or water,
Yeah.
but seeking out the word. And Amos isn't the only one that speaks of that.
Mm.
So in verse 7, chapter 45, Joseph says, Yahweh has sent me ahead of you. And still, it's unfortunate today, but many of what I would call of the house of Israel, the chosen ones, still don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're still encompassed, or they're still active within the world.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that their deliverance has already been made. I was reading in Corinthians, Paul was saying that. You have been delivered by the works and the acts that Yeshua did. I'm paraphrasing. But the last part of verse 8, where it says, He has made me father to Pharaoh. He has given me charge over all of Pharaoh's business. And I've made a statement over the years, in part to this phrase. I mean, Joseph could go anywhere and everywhere that he wanted to, except the bedroom of Pharaoh. He had charge of everything. So the Joseph of the world is going to be a master to the Father. He's going to be given authority. Now, how do I know that to be true? All right, if you're around Ezekiel, which you probably aren't, I'm working from 2 books here. Go to Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel chapter 34. This also ties into when the brothers did come down to Egypt. Now I'll end on that here in just a minute. But chapter 34, verse 1. Then the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy, or speak the word against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say, to those shepherds, thus says Yahweh Elohim, woe, shepherds of Israel, who have been feeding themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? You eat the fat and clothe yourselves with the wool. You slaughter the fat without feeding the flock. Those who are sickly you have not strengthened. The diseased you have not healed. The broken you have not bound up. The scattered you have not brought back. Nor have you sought for the lost. But with force and with severity you have dominated them. And they were scattered for lack of a shepherd, singular, and they became food for every beast of the field and were scattered. And Yahweh speaking here, my flock wandered through all the mountains and on every high hill, and my flock was scattered over all the surface of the earth, and there was no one to search or seek them out.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the parable about the shepherd and the lost sheep, the one left the 99
Mm-hmm.
and just went after the one? I believe he was thinking about Ezekiel 34 here. I mean, there's a lot more that ties into that. However, the shepherds were not looking after the flock.
Mm-hmm.
And that in part is also happening today.
Yeah. A lot of them are looking out for their own interests to make
Right.
a name for themselves.
And I have to be careful, you know, not to point out or to bring up the whole fact that, you know, dealing with the church, dealing with, you know, today's pastors. I prefer to, you know, now look at the shepherds of the children of Israel.
Mm.
Those who are teaching,
Mm.
those who are, you know, are they in it for themselves?
Mm.
Are they wanting to get out of it what they think they deserve or they've worked for? Are they taking the best for themselves? And there's been plenty of them throughout the years that said they were of the house of Israel and did that to the sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Yeshua said that to the rabbis also?
Yes, yeah. Therefore, you shepherds, verse 9 of chapter 34 of Ezekiel, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh, behold, I am against the shepherds, and I shall demand my sheep from them and make them cease from feeding sheep, so the shepherds will not feed themselves anymore, but I shall deliver my flock from their mouth, that they may not be food for them.
Mm.
Now let's tie that into our Torah portion. If the grain, if the meat, if you know, is the food for the people,
Mm-hmm.
and Amos says it's not, you know, for manna or it's not for the you know, for the bread or the water,
Mm.
but it's for the lack of the word of Yahweh being
Mhm.
spoken. That's, I believe, is what he's talking about here in chapter 34. You're not feeding my sheep. You're not giving them the word of Yahweh. So what do you think that, you know, the shepherds are giving them even today?
Pretty words.
Hmm?
Pretty words that don't
Pretty
mean
words,
Mhm.
yeah,
That don't mean anything.
that have no substance,
Yeah.
yeah. Just trying to build the flocks, and that the unfortunate thing in the 50s, when you had the, you know, or when you've had the great revivals in the past, and I've gone through a couple of revivals myself, and I've always thought, those people that went through the revivals, where are they at today? Those that got touched by the Spirit of Yahweh, where are they at today? What are they doing? And especially the shepherds, the ones who say they were called
Mm.
to be a shepherd. It's
Do
a,
you know anybody? Do you know anybody from that time
yes,
that has, and have they continued on
no,
in that? Yeah. Okay.
and let me tell you, the two that I'm thinking of, it's because the word of Yahweh didn't come to pass in the time frame that they were hoping it would,
Mhm.
or they were thinking it would. Therefore, they got discouraged.
Okay.
Well, that's like when Yeshua fed the 5,000 or the multitudes. Not all of them stayed.
No.
Right. Not all of them stayed when they were fed. Yeah.
Mm.
when they were fed food, when they were fed, you know,
Yeah, actual food. Not
Actual
all of
food,
them
yeah.
stayed and followed.
But
A lot of
it's
them.
the physical form.
yeah, it was the physical form. I want to continue on in chapter 34 of Ezekiel, because that ties for me into our Torah portion. Verse 11, for thus says Yahweh, behold, I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out. That's leaving the 99 and going after the one. As a shepherd cares for his herd in the day, when he is among his scattered sheep, so I will care for my sheep and will deliver them from all the places to which they were scattered on a cloudy and gloomy day. So some 2,600 years ago, when the sheep were scattered, we've had glimpses of regathering throughout the generations, and especially in our day now. You know, I've been walking in this since pretty much 90, 91. So what's that, 40 years? 10, almost 40 years, 38, 36 years. But I mean, I was being conditioned to this walk back in the 80s. And I've had several people in my life that, you know, were against what I was doing, not understanding, many more of them not understanding, you know, what the calling was. And I remember one of the original groups back in the 96, I think is when it started. Started teaching some of these things, returning to the Torah. Had one of the elders in my fellowship come up to me and says, David, is there anybody else like us out there? And I said, I'm sure there is. So that's when I started seeking out other individuals. 30 years later, I'm still doing it. 25 years later, I'm still doing it. Let me read verse 12. As a shepherd cares for his herd in the day, when he is among his scattered sheep, so I will care for my sheep and will deliver them from the places which they have been scattered. Let me read that again in a different way. For the word, as the word cares for his herd in the day, when the word is among his scattered sheep, so the word will care for my sheep and will deliver them from all the places. Can I say those words?
Yeah.
I think so. Verse 13, and the word will bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the countries and bring them to their own land. And the word will feed them on the mountains of Israel, by the streams, and in all the inhabited places of the land. It sounds to me like a restoration. It sounds to me like things are coming back together. Verse 14, the word will feed them in a good pasture, and their grazing ground will be on the mountain heights of Israel. There they will lie down in good grazing ground, and they will feed in rich pasture on the mountains of Israel. I've been on those mountains. Some are good grazing, some are not. I'm going to put verse 15 in my words. The word will feed my flock, and I will lead them to the millennial kingdom. I will lead them to the kingdom of heaven here on this earth. So does declare Yahweh. That's our hope in the future. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Mhm.
That's what I think most of us, or all of us, are seeking out. Because here Ezekiel talks about a restoration. Moses prophesied that also. Moses prophesied, he's going to scatter you, but he's going to gather you back again.
That's why the word came back.
That's why the word, yes, that's why the word came back. But if we think that it's already happened, then we're just misleading ourselves. And if we're misleading ourselves, then how easy would it be for us to mislead others? Real easy. So when I started to, look at passages like this years ago, I go, we're a ways off yet. And then you get little hopes of, with people thinking, prophesying and saying, it's going to happen now, it's going to happen now, and so forth and so on, about like what Martina brought up, and, then it doesn't happen. I had to come to a conclusion. We're quite a ways off. And people still don't like to hear that. But the reality is, we are still a ways off. I see glimmers of hope of the house of Israel being returned to the land, but they're not recognized. That's the unfortunate thing, they're not recognized. It's because Joseph, in today, has not revealed himself to the brothers. People, we are the Josephs of the world. And I know in the past I've been a part of a couple of organizations that saw themselves as the Josephs, and they were trying to get their, quote, Jewish brethren, the rabbis, to acknowledge who we were. It wasn't time. It was not time yet. But the time will come. After our brother Judah has gone through a couple of tests, it'll come. But the house of Israel is still organizing itself. I pray and I hope that it's in my lifetime, but if it's not, I know it will happen at some point. And I'm kind of looking down at our Torah portion in chapter 46, verse 28. And it's about them taking the family back, or going to Egypt. And Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph. To prepare ahead of him in Goshen. And it's the same thing as we return to the land of Canaan. At some point, Judah's going to recognize who the Josephs are of the world. And it's not to take the people out of the land of Canaan and take them out into the world, but it's to bring the house of Israel allow them, invite them, receive them back into the land of Canaan. There's a lot in this. Well, there's a lot in all the Torah portions. But if we can see them as words that can help lead and guide us, I think we're way ahead of the mark. We're way ahead of the curve, so to speak. So, that's all I have for you today. Any questions? Any thoughts? Nope.
Well, it was quite some time before Joseph decided to reveal himself to his brothers.
Right.
He met with them a few times and spoke with them, and
He tested them.
He tested them.
Yes. And that's, I mean, that's where we see it, and then Judah is selected to be the spokesperson
Right.
for the family.
Yeah, there's several different places here too, where in this portion again, where types and shadows of Joseph and Yeshua are there. Right. But the one that I always stands out to me, I really like is when he reveals himself to his brothers in their reaction. And I think of Yeshua when he said, prophetically, that when he returns, they will look upon the one whom he fears. And here the brothers are looking upon the one whom they thought was dead. They sold into slavery and thought was dead. So it's another similarity.
The word is still alive. And it's like a two-edged sword. You can cut both ways, as Revelation warns us about that. So very good. All right, Father, we give you praise and glory, and I thank you again for this Shabbat, for this day, and I thank you for your word. And I pray, Father, that you will continue to reveal yourself through your word. Strengthen our hearts, and that above all things, I ask you to watch over us and our loved ones, and give you praise in Yeshua's name. Amen.